we're not talking about like, oh, you've got to make the most incredible blog. You don't have to make the biggest production level of social media content anyone has ever seen, right? That's not what we're talking about when we say value. We're talking about the context of it. We're talking about what value does it have to your customers. So we start off with a quote here, a couple quotes. First one is Michael Brenner. Behind every piece of great content is a marketer, publisher, and author who passionately and empathetically sought to help his or her audience. And the second one comes from Andrew Davis. Content builds relationships. Relationships are built on trust. Trust drives revenue. Eddie, you picked out these two quotes here.
Heck yeah.
You want to spend like a minute or so explaining why you picked these two quotes?
The whole purpose of these quotes is not so much to read them. I just wanted to let you know the fact that, well, content marketing is not a buzzword. It is not new. This is just to reinforce that it's still around. I mean, we're going to go in these next couple of slides. We're going to show why different avenues don't work. We're also going to show why. I mean, it's got about a 200-year history. I mean, if not longer, of effectiveness in terms of what content marketing does for you. So I'm not going to read them to you. I know Mike just did that, but the point was just keep this in mind as we go through that this is not a buzzword. This is as relevant now as it was 200 years ago, and we're going to show you why. So I think I'm ready to move on.
All right. Welcome in, Michelle, by the way. Michelle just popped in.
Hey, Michelle.
All right. Why just asking doesn't work?
All right. Now, you've seen these pop-ups. These are old. I mean, I did this intentionally, but the point here is think about how you feel when you read these ads. Now, not only think about how you feel, but think about how likely are you to click on one or to buy one. I mean, is the answer to both of those things. I probably feel very angry, and there is no way that I'm going to click on any of these things. I mean, these things were so hated that they actually created a market to prevent them. Now, it would be cheating of me to say that pop-ups in and of themselves are advertising. This is just I'm not saying that's what advertising is, because I do love and respect the crap. I'm in that industry. I'm in that business. I respect that. I'm just saying that pop-up ads are an extreme example of a harmful and counter-efficient element of advertising. And that concept, and it's right here on the slides, is disruption. So advertisements, they interrupt you from watching a show. They interrupt you from reading a magazine, driving a car. I mean, they're distracting. The point is they're obstacles. And because of which, pop-ups fail to convert in this way we showed them. You can feel it when you look at these things, how likely you are to buy these or how likely you are to click on them. Not only do they fail to convert, but because of the anger you feel toward them, they actually harm the brand's reputation. So this is just one extreme example of how advertising pushes. And we're going to talk more about pulling. And this is more about pulling attention. We're going to talk about how to push information. So this is the stark opposite of what we're talking about in content marketing. So I'm ready to roll here on the next one.
Yeah, I think I just want to
fire away, bro.
Hey, Eddie, every time you move, it's just there's a muffle going on. So just minimize your moving there. You can hear a little muffle from me.
I cannot move from here on out.
That's right. Stand still. So I just want to point out there is such a thing as, being disruptive in terms of, say, like, because I do a lot of social media work. So, there's the idea of being disruptive where people are scrolling, right? And you're doing something unique, and it's almost in a way disruptive, right? Like it's what they would call disruptive media, where it's very much, it catches them off guard because they're so used to seeing a certain type of content, and then your content's slightly different. And a lot of people will say that this is beneficial, and I agree that it's beneficial. But I think what we're going to dive into, because I just wanted to kind of make this distinction, is that disruptive media on social media.
Yeah.
Eddie, stop moving.
Not fair.
I believe that disruptive media is beneficial. Like every time Eddie moves, it disrupts me. But anyways, but we're going to talk about how it's the context, right? It's the value of it that matters. So, disruptive media on social media has to have that right value to it, that right context to it. Whereas what Eddie is showing here with these ads is that it's just you're already doing something, and it's in your face, like, hey, by the way, do this instead. And yeah, well, we're going to dive right into it. Here we go to the next slide here. Advertising can be packaged with a trade. Ooh. What's this, Eddie?
All right. So, I mean, how muffled am I right now? I keep getting
You're
all
pretty
these.
good now.
All right. I keep getting all these messages that say I'm muffled. All right. And it's fine when I don't move. This is brutal, but all right. So the point is that advertising can be packaged with the trade. All right. So at the beginning of the presentation, I showed you. I showed you these quotes from Michael Brenner and Andrew Davis. It's a way of showing how relevant and important content marketing is. We touched upon that. But these are textbook examples of content marketing that almost date back to 200 years. So we're showing the gap. We're showing is as relevant was 200 years ago as it is now. The principles that they use are the same ones that people are using now. And why is that? It's simply because they work. I mean, so the Michelin guide, it was encourage people to go places, to see restaurants, to go to attractions. But I mean, the weird connection was it was for tires. Stark opposite of that, the Jello Recipe Handbook. I mean, the Jello Recipe Handbook was essentially, I mean, here's our product. If you buy it, I'll give you free ways of making it better. I mean, the Poor Richard's Almanac, it was entertaining and useful. That was exactly what it was sold as. Content opened the door for paid advertisements. And we kind of make the joke here that Ben Franklin was the original influencer. I mean, he gave away entertaining and useful information. And once he built a large enough platform, he gave things away. Now, each of these examples was built on the premise that, you needed to give away information in order to generate revenue. So the information they provided was essentially helpful to people, even if it wasn't directly tied to their product in the sense of the Michelin guide. Michelin, 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 Michelin. Remember that. Before we continue, I'd also recommend, as an attorney, regardless of what type of practice you're in, or what type of the services you provide, I'd recommend that the information you choose to give away be directly tied to your law and law firm. So when you see the Michelin guide, I wouldn't ever associate. I wouldn't plan on giving away information that's not directly related to the law. And I'm going to explain that why. But I want you to take away the principles of these three things that have shown to generate results, not necessarily the exact model themselves, but we'll extract the actual information, the principles from them and why that works. Like, what else you got on this?
Well, it's interesting that you said, you mentioned Ben Franklin was like the original influencer.
Yeah.
He's got that quote that a lot of people know. It was when he was flying the kite and he got zapped by lightning, and the quote was "Yow."
Yeah, are you joking me? I'm over here being told I can't move because the internet shuts out, and I have to hear you this nonsense. This is perfect. I appreciate that. Unbelievable.
All right, so now we're talking about bridging the trust gap here. What is the trust gap?
Well, here's why this doesn't work, and I'm just going to pick a name at random. Scroll down the list. Laura Hamden. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. If I'm not, I apologize. But here's the deal, Laura. Right now, in the next 5 minutes, if you say yes, I'm going to send you a contract, and I want you to sign it with Spotlight Branding right now. Let's do this. Laura, you can put in the chat whether you want to sign a contract right now. And not going to happen. So right there. And that's the other thing too. Okay. Now, if Laura is not willing to sign a contract with us, why don't I just ask her right now, well, book a meeting with us. We have a business development manager. She's awesome. Her name is Janet. If you ever do call us, you're going to talk to her. Go book a call with her right now. Okay. See, again, nobody's doing that. And again, Laura, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pick on you. I'm just going to say nobody would have done that. There's not a person in this room right now that would have signed a contract with us. They would not have booked a call with us. And one of the reasons why no one on this chat or no one on this live event is willing to do those things is because we haven't bridged that trust gap, which is, I mean, as you can probably sense in the lack of hesitation as to anyone why booking or working with us right now. Because the whole idea is if you give information away that you can rely on, you can demonstrate your credibility. If I give you more information on this webinar, I'm demonstrating my credibility as a marketer. I'm working to bridge that trust gap. I mean, this may have to be repeated for months and or years before someone does end up signing with us. But that's the whole point. I'm here to develop credibility and demonstrate it by giving away information. Another way of thinking of that is like, think of it as selling your value by demonstrating how much of it you have. And that's all we're talking about. And this is one of the really wonderful things about referrals. Um, Referrals, for example, they're powerful because people walk in with a relative high degree of trust and confidence before they even meet you. And I mean, my brother's a very successful attorney up in Boston. He's a corporate law attorney. When I needed an attorney for a family law issue, the first thing I did was call my brother. When my brother told me a name of a person to call, I didn't check the website. I didn't go on that person's social media. I didn't do anything else other than call the attorney immediately, only because the trust I have in my brother transferred the trust I had into the attorney. And now the ironic part here, and I don't want to be misconstrued, is don't think that this eliminates the need for content, because content keeps you in touch with the people who are most likely going to refer you. The attorney that I ended up working with somehow kept my brother's attention and his partner's attention. So when I needed help, my brother quickly had someone in mind. I don't know how he kept his attention, but that's the point. That's what we're talking about here. Is content is going to not only bridge the gap, the trust gap, by giving information away and demonstrating your credibility, but it's also going to keep you top of mind. And so the first time when there is an opportunity to give a referral, they'll remember you. And it's like, what do you think, Mikey?
Yeah, I mean, and also to your point about needing content. I mean, some people have stronger trust between their friendships or their family than others, right?
Yeah.
So you obviously have more trust in your brother than maybe other people have in their own family. So regardless of a referral or not, that definitely helps. But also there are just those people that they'll get the referral and they'll say, oh, okay, I'll look into them. And then they go and do their own personal research.
Yep.
It's not saying that it doesn't help. I mean, it helps immensely, but just the fact that you have that there for them to even browse through and basically reinforce what this referral has told you,
Yep.
then I mean that's and we talk about, you see on the it says build channels of leverage. That's basically what you're doing with your content, is that that's your leverage right there. That's the stuff that will get you to the promised land, so to
Yeah.
say. It's building that social media, building that website, building that newsletter, and having the right stuff in it.
Yeah.
That's your leverage there that basically takes them to that next step.
Mhm.
And actually on this next slide, you can see, we got two different categories here. We got the content and then we got the channels. So the content is what goes into the channels. So a lot of people will say, I mean, just being in this world, I hear it a lot. A lot of people say, oh, I'm creating social media. Well, you're not creating social media. You're creating content to go on social media. Social media is a vehicle.
Yep.
Networking is a vehicle. Newsletter is a vehicle. Website's a vehicle. It's the stuff on the left side of your screen there, the podcast, blogging, video, the photos and graphics. That is the meat. That is the gift that goes into the present box, which is the channel there. What are your thoughts on that, Eddie?
Nothing beyond what you just said, other than it's an easy way of visualizing and organizing the types of content you're going to have and where it goes. I mean, we're barraged with different strategies and tactics. It's just a simple way for you to visualize what you're doing, what you're creating, and where it's going. So if you have these two buckets, I create here, I post here. It's just an easy way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just kind of what we're trying to also reinforce, is that, you can create great content, but if you don't have the right channels to get it out to the right people, then what's the purpose of creating the great content? So these things both go together simultaneously, and they need each other. All right, content, giving things away, and legal marketing. Giving things away. What do you mean giving? Like my stuff? Uh-oh, you're muted. You're muted, so I'll take over from here. So just quick, remember, you as a law firm owner, you as a lawyer in general, you know more, should go without saying, you know more than your clients. That's the reason why they're hiring you, right? That's the reason why they need you in the first place. A lot of people will say, oh, I'll just represent myself. But at the end of the day, I would rather have a lawyer in court with me if I had a situation, just as if I had car trouble, I would rather go to a mechanic who knows what they're doing to help me. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, I can do this. I watched a YouTube video. I'm good. I know what I'm doing. Is your sound back on there, Eddie? No, I can't hear you. All right, let me continue. Um, so first and foremost, when you're creating the content, and we say giving things away. We talk about giving away the farm, right? Don't be afraid to just tell your client what needs to happen in order to alleviate their situation. That's perfectly fine. At the end of the day, they're still going to come to you. Someone using the mechanic example again. If a mechanic told me, "Hey, you should do this, this, and this," right? I would look at my car and turn right back around and be like, "Wait, where is that? Where is this? Where is that?" I need the mechanic, right? I need the person. Otherwise, I'm going to possibly waste a whole day working on my car and nothing's going to happen to it. What about now, Eddie? No. At least you can't hear the rustling either. But first and foremost, it comes down to what kind of content are you creating as well? Is the content valuable to your clients, and is it speaking to them, not speaking to other lawyers? So a lot of times we get the question, how sophisticated should my content be? If I'm writing a blog, if I'm creating social media content, how sophisticated should it be? Well, it comes down to your audience. I mean, these are the people that are going to eventually hire you. So you need to speak down to their level. And when I say down to the level, I don't mean, you need baby terms or anything like that, but you just need to keep in mind that these people don't know legalese. These people don't know legal terms. It's okay to not have the sophistication in your legal blogs, in your legal content, because you're not talking to other lawyers. You're talking to your audience. So before giving something away, aka content, giving away your secret sauce, right? You got to ask yourself, is it valuable? Right? Does my audience need this type of content? And secondly, does it enhance my credibility? Is this something that will get me at least a step further, right? Because it's the long game. You're in it for the long haul. Is this something that will get me from point A to point A.1, and then from A.1 to A.2?
Mikey,
What
please
do
tell me
you
you
think?
can hear me.
Hey, let's go.
Woo-hoo! I had to restart 3 times. You have no idea.
So go ahead and add anything. I kind of covered
No,
what
I
it
heard
says
it.
on the
I could hear
slide.
you
But if you,
fine, which is embarrassing for me.
okay,
I could
cool.
hear you just fine. Yeah, but I
So
mean,
if you had anything else to add,
the only thing I'm going to point out here is like there are such thing. Everything you said is accurate. Just there's such thing as bad content. All right. Just because it's valuable doesn't mean you should post it. And that's what the importance of both questions is. Like the classic example we give away is the legal newsletters with cookie recipes. I mean, this is not an effective example of content marketing. I mean, granted, yes, you are giving something away, but it is nothing to increase your brand. It is nothing to help close the gap, and it doesn't make anyone trust you. So even if you have the best cookie recipes that just absolutely trounce Otis Spunkmeyer, then best case scenario, that's what people are going to remember you for. So you have to hit both of these wickets.
and you better hope those are really good cookies.
I mean, listen, tell me you don't love Otis. Are you even old enough to know what Otis Spunkmeyer cookies are?
Listen, I'm 30, so I'm not 50 like you.
I'm
I
40.
wasn't living
Thank
that.
you. But I mean, yeah,
Okay,
so we're hitting both wickets. So I mean, even if you have an amazing cookie recipe, that's value, but it does nothing to enhance your credibility. So the point is, regardless of where you post, whether it's a newsletter, social media, video, blog, podcast, regardless of the source that we showed, I mean, it has to hit both of these wickets. So yeah, that's that you did a nice job covering it while I was completely MIA.
All right, hidden benefits.
I can do this one because I have sound now.
Yes, and real quick before we move on to this slide, if anyone has any questions up to this point, please leave them in the questions or the chat. And then after this slide, we're actually answer some questions. But yes, if you have any questions so far, something you need a specific example to your practice area. I mean, Eddie works with lawyers in all different types of practice areas. I create content for, tailored towards our audience, which is, lawyers in all practice areas. So if you have any kind of questions whatsoever and you want us to get specific, Absolutely. So
I will point out
take
that
it away.
Laura posted the website for OtisSpunkmeyer.com. So I mean, it
Oh,
is a very real thing. And if you've ever had an Otis Spunkmeyer cookie, it's almost as good as the ones at the DoubleTree Hotel. But all right.
I'll have to check it out after.
Here's the funny part. I mean, so like so if I were to ask everybody in the audience right now, who is ever in the chat, I tell you to think of a tire company or cookie company. The first thing you're going to think of is either Michelin or Otis Spunkmeyer cookies, because we've been talking about so much Otis Spunkmeyer even more. This is what we call top of mind awareness. We've hit on these wickets so many times. So then when the question does surface, you're like, yep, here we go. I know what these two things are. So now translate that in terms of top of mind awareness and carry that over to the person who's read the Michelin guide, but has never traveled anywhere. Now, remember, the point of the Michelin guide was, I mean, hypothetically, is to give these destinations and locations where people would have to travel to wear out their tires. I mean, that was the concept. But regardless, even if they didn't travel anywhere and they just simply enjoyed the Michelin guide, at some point, these people are going to need new tires. So the question is, what is the likelihood of them like choosing Michelin after they've consumed Michelin's content each month? Now, that and again, we're talking about taking away the principles of the content marketing, and that's the same thing here, because consider how likely someone's going to contact you or even refer you to a friend or colleague if they read your newsletter each month. The principles here are the exact same. And so people are going to actually stay involved with your newsletter, and they will not unsubscribe as long as the information is valuable. And again, as long as it's valuable and it speaks to your credibility, post away. But if it's just valuable and doesn't speak to your credibility, hold off. What do you got, Mikey?
Yeah. Well, I think, to the third point that's there about, value is perceived by the consumer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we're not talking about like, oh, you've got to make the most incredible blog. You don't have to make the biggest production level of social media content anyone has ever seen, right? That's not what we're talking about when we say value. We're talking about the context of it. We're talking about what value does it have to your customers. If you are a personal injury attorney, what value does a post saying, hey, if you got into an accident, here's what you should do. Here are the 5 things you should do before anything else. That holds so much more value to somebody who you are creating content for than it would somebody else. But that's fine, because you're creating the content for that person that needs it. It's all perceived by the consumer, and you're just tapping into that behavior. This is not a new marketing concept whatsoever. This has been since the dawn of time. Like, hey, you need a wheel? Great, here's a wheel. Hey, you need heat? I created this thing called fire. It's been around forever. It's just how you package it, and you package it in the right way.
Yep.
Just like a Christmas present.
Well played. And that's essentially how you generate revenue, by giving things away. That's how it's done. I mean, and it's done by giving away information, the information your clients are most likely going to want. I mean, you're going through a divorce, and I have a person going through a divorce for the first time has absolutely no idea what's going on. A person who's been in a car wreck who can't go to work has absolutely no idea what the next step is. So when they turn to you, not only are they getting information that they're willingly inviting into their life, they're also bridging the gap, the trust gap, and they're beginning to trust you more, and they're willing to keep doing it because they're benefiting from it. That's how they stay engaged. It's the complete opposite of the pop-up ads that interrupt and say, here, click, versus here, let me give you as much information I can so I can stay in your life. So when the time comes and you trust me enough, you will call me. And that's how you do it.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate you guys.
Have a wonderful Christmas. Give before you ask.